Hi, I'm Steph from Stitching with Steph. Welcome to my channel. If you're a subscriber, thank you for coming back for another stitch with me this week. If you're not a subscriber and you like the content that I produce or you want someone to stitch along with, go ahead and click that subscribe button, the notification bell, which will give you alerts anytime that I upload a new video, and leave a comment about any questions that you may have. I'll be sure to get back to you. This week, we're going to be doing the Korean folklore dancer. We are going into week 2. So let's get our canvas ready and head into this stitch with me. All right, we have our thread all ready because I was already working on this project throughout the week. We're going to be working on symbol number 2, and it's this thinner line, number 208. There were 2 symbols that were similar on this canvas, and see, 16 fat green one, 930. That 930 was this darker gray through here. So I stitched all that first, so it'd be a little bit easier for me to stitch on this thin green line. I'm going to work on finishing this couple of boxes up. I'll probably do some of her eyes and in through here, just so we can finish up this face here. So this week I should be able, as you can see, I focused a lot on her face. This was my one project that I focused a lot on her face because I just wanted to get all the detail done. But it does have a lot of that confetti in there, so I had to make sure that I got at least that much done. So what happened was, this is how much I got done. This is the back side, sorry guys. So if I had a piece of thread out that already had, like, so I was like stitching all that, and if it was extra, I'd find more of it farther down the canvas, just so I wouldn't have to park my needle and thread on a canvas this size. I don't really like doing that because it's a project I use for handheld. So, oops, got snagged on my edge there. Sorry if I'm not talking as much on this video. I, in fact, have a cold. I kind of suspected I was coming down with one, but it is what it is. My husband messaged me because my husband does the morning routine and I do the afternoon routine with the kids. And he messaged me saying that he thinks that our youngest has a cold because he was a little sniffly this morning when he dropped him off, just to check on him when I pick him up today. I was like, well, I guess that'll be 2 of us yet again. I'll be honest with you, working night shift does take its toll on your immune system, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. Because since January, I have had 4 colds. I keep track because I do want to talk to my doctor about it to see like what I can do to try to help maybe my immune system, or like see if he has any suggestions. And I know a lot of it's because I don't get a lot of sleep and my body needs that to regenerate and rejuvenate. So I don't know. I might have to sit down and talk with my husband and figure something out with sleep. And I won't lie, I do take a lot of naps, especially working night shift. Like on my last stitch with me, I literally cut my video a little bit short because I was like, guys, I'm feeling a little tired. I'm gonna end this one now because I just want to go take a nap. And those naps can literally hit me whenever. It can hit me 11 o'clock in the morning. It can hit me at 5 o'clock in the evening. My body's definitely on a night shift schedule, which kind of makes it hard for me for school. So I try to make my classes a little bit later in the afternoon, a little bit later in the morning, I guess you would say, just enough time for me to be able to go and pick my kids up from school. So I am definitely not a morning person right now just because of my work schedule. And we've been getting our butts handed to us at work. So anytime my nurses get overworked, me as a nurse assistant, I already know that it's going to be me too. So in the ICU, if your nurse, the typical ratios, if we have like devices, And what I mean by devices is like ECMO machines, we have CRRT machines, stuff like that, like really, really sick patients. Those patients require a lot of attention. So the nurses will be a one-to-one, meaning the one nurse is assigned to that one patient because they have to handle sometimes upwards of 20 drips in all those machines, and they have to constantly titrate drips. They constantly have to adjust the machines to make sure they're keeping the patient alive and doing what they're supposed to be doing accordingly. Um, when they don't have a one-to-one, we then overall as a staff, we will get tripled. So what that means is my nurses will then have 3 patients. So if you don't have a device, your typical ICU ratio is 2 to 1. Well, the past 3 weeks, I don't know what's going on. I think it's because some people have taken some traveling contracts, which I am mad at them. They went to Hawaii. Okay, I wish I could go to Hawaii. That would be nice, right? Sitting on the beach after work or on your days off. Anyways, several of them have taken some travel contracts to like Hawaii and stuff. So they dropped down to PRN status, which is as needed. So whenever they feel like floating in, essentially. So our core staff has been taking triples. So when my nurses are tripled, I'm not assigned to one pod. We have 5 pods in our ICU, so our ICU is actually a very big ICU. I will have the entire unit to myself, and I have to bounce between all the nurses that are tripled to try to help them with care and all that stuff with patients, which means we're turning people every couple of hours, we're repositioning, we're going down for MRIs, CTs, like all those types of things. So, we've had a couple of mass transfusions where people were coding, and we've had 2 of them where I was literally running back and forth to the blood bank. That was physically exhausting, and unfortunately, we did lose our patients in both situations because they were just bleeding out too fast for us to replace it and locate the bleeding. Those nights are very exhausting mentally, physically, and emotionally because it's like, we do all this and we still lose our patients, and that's really hard. So the past 3 weeks, I have been very, very exhausted, and I think my husband has seen it because there was one day I came home and I literally like de-shedded from our bedroom into the bathroom, and by the time I got into the bathroom because he was getting ready, and I just turned on the hot water and I just got in and I was sat there in silence, and he's like, "It was that bad, huh?" I was like, "Not that bad in the sense of like it's a horrible day, but like yes, mentally it was." And then bless his little heart, he goes, "Do you want to talk about it?" And I just looked at him. I said, "No, I'm not. I don't want to talk about it." And that's one thing, if you have a healthcare worker in your life, we just need you to be understanding how mentally and emotionally exhausting some days can be for us, especially in like the ED or ICU, flight for life, stuff like that, NICU. Uh, if they're working in a specialty that caters to like really sick population, be a little bit understanding that we see things that you guys maybe see once or twice in your lifetime, and we see it every day. So my husband's very understanding of that, and he lets me decompress, and um he lets me take my naps as needed. And that's why he supports my little cross stitching journey, because he's like, I know it brings you happiness and peace. So like when I told him I wanted to start my own little YouTube channel just to not necessarily do anything with it, but to connect with other people that like this craft and hobby, um, but to kind of document my journey. That was my whole point, was I just wanted to document what I'm doing, and you know, it's nice to make friends along the way that have the same interests as me, but more or less for myself, document this little journey and see my progression of my skill set and all that fun stuff. That looks really pretty. Yeah, this symbol was a pain in the patootie to weed out. It was so funny because I was asking one of my coworkers, I was like, "Do you see the difference in these two?" And she goes, "Yeah, one's like fat and one's kind of skinny." I was like, I knew it. So it was like finding Where's Waldo, but in a fat and skinny green line. All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab some water, guys. All right, I wet my whistle a little bit and put some chapstick on. I feel like when you're sick, you tend to have even more of a dry mouth and lips than usual because you're mouth breathing, right? Because your nose is all stuffy. Everything else is congested right along with you. Yeah. I think after I do these couple here, I might move to like up here next. We'll see. My goal for the next coming weeks is to try to finish just this area here, like all of the stitching, like from here up, because I really just want to see like her face and like all of her ornaments and stuff done, as you can see right there. So essentially I'm working from like here up is what I'm focusing on right now. You see right there? See, that's like a fatter one, so I missed one. So I'm just going to leave that one alone. See the difference between that one and this one? Now imagine trying to do that at nighttime instead of the daylight. Because again, I was doing this at work on my lunch break, and the lighting in the break room's good, but it's not as good as you can see right now. So those symbols, I'm only going to be stitching at home. I learned that the hard way, but it's okay. Because again, you see I missed one, but then I have these two random ones. So I'm going to just stitch those two right quick, which is this color that we're currently working, the number 208 DMC. You know what? I'm just going to do it through here. And I just thread this under any other existing threads. If it's a newer, like I didn't have so much thread established, I would have wove it into the actual fabric itself. Let's do these two here, just so we know we don't get them confused with that single outlier over here. Last night I was watching a thing on Hulu, because you know how you can get Hulu, Disney, and the Discovery Channel and all that together. And it was like about the witch trials, like what led up to the Salem witch trials. So it started like with the Salem witch trials and then went backwards, like how it went into like Europe and stuff. I'm like, dang, they literally just were out there prosecuting everybody. They were throwing people under the bus. Like if they owed you money, they accused you of witchcraft. The if the village people didn't like you, they accused you of witchcraft. So I just thought it was kind of sad. I mean, I knew a decent amount about the Salem witch trials. I just didn't know about like all the stuff that was happening over in like nowadays. It's like Switzerland, Austria, Germany, all those over there. I was like, I didn't realize how bad it was. There was one person that was even accused and hung because there was a teenager that accused him that he stated that he saw. See, look, there's a big one and then a small, and then some bigs. He accused, and the funny thing is that he was one of the prosecutors of the whole witch trial. So this teenager came along and was like, you're lying. I saw you go into the forest and you were in a golden carriage with black horses and you were dancing with the devil in the forest. So everyone like believed this kid and they ended up like hanging this prosecutor who was prosecuting all these other people for witchcraft, which I thought that was highly ironic. But I was just like, that's the way it was, I guess, back then, where it was one person's word against the other, and if overall society felt that that one person's word was more valid or hold more truth, then you were SOL. And I was just like, can you imagine like being a persecutor of like people doing witchcraft and you're like, haha, you're all on this power trip and you're like, you get to hang, you get to burn. And then you're like, oh crap, somebody's accusing me of it. And then you end up dying the same way. I'm just saying it's very ironic. That's why we have to be careful. Like when you point the finger at somebody, it's like you got three more pointing back at you. That's what I always try to tell my kids. Like before we go and snitch on somebody, is it doing harm to others or are you just doing it just to be spiteful? Can you resolve the issue on your own, right? Like, can we talk through this together? So I just thought it was ironic. I was just like, dang, homeboy just poof. As quickly as he came and he thought he had all this power, as quickly as it got taken away from him. And I'm like, you would think people would learn from it too, right? They were still going around like a hot minute all the way up. Like they said that our witch trials here were like 1597, something like that. I can't remember. I was half asleep watching it, but I was like for 100 years these people were doing it. And I'm just like, what? Like you guys didn't realize that something was off, but they didn't have any other explanation for bad weather or, crops dying or people falling ill. They just didn't have the sciences back then. So their logical explanation was like everything else, religion and then the devil. So it's just like, the math doesn't math, guys. And people would have these symptoms of illnesses and they would think that it was the devil trying to take over their body. I thought it was an interesting historical piece that, like, I mean, I knew what the Salem witch trials were. I just didn't know how bad it was, I guess, like worldwide. And here in the colonies, they couldn't even prosecute people until they had a constable come over from Europe. So these people would get like thrown into jail and would have to sit there and wait until they had like a new constable from Europe coming over because they were the only ones that could try these cases. And so people were sitting in jail, withering away, just waiting to prove their innocence. And because that people were being tortured and everything else, they would just confess to it because that would at least save their lives. So if they confessed to witchcraft, they would just more or less be shunned from the community, but they would still be alive, which, I mean, I guess is better than dying, right? But the ones that typically ended up being killed were the ones that stood on their truth and were like, I am not a witch, and they literally died at the stakes. Sounds like my cats are out in the living room tussling a bit. I have 3 male cats and I wouldn't say tussling. They they like to play fight, so. All right. All right, friends, I'm gonna stop here because I'm gonna have to go check on my cats. Bear with me. All right, I'm back. I had to go break up a quote unquote cat fight. They were playing, but one of our cats, he's the youngest, he tends to pick fights with the older cats when he wants to play around. So the older cats are grumpy old men at this point, and they're just like, can you just leave me alone, please, sir? So I had to go out there and get the youngest and separate them. And I know that they're just playing, but I just don't want vet bills from an accidental bite that gets infected or a scratch that gets infected or something along those lines. Those of you that have pets know what I'm talking about. So I went out there and broke that quarrel up between those two munchkins. Those two we got from the same breeder. Um, we have a Scottish fold, which is gray. That's my daughter's cat. He has folded ears. And then we have a Scottish straight, which he's an orange cat. And he has straight ears, hence why he's called a Scottish straight. So as you can see here, what I'm doing is, I'll kind of pull this through. I'm going to stitch this square and this square. So I'm going to do a half, half, and then swing back around and then come this way and finish this section up. And this is what I mean by, like, when you have a confetti heavy piece, you have to kind of look at what you're doing, which is, I'm going to be starting a counted cross stitch next week. I just got to get it all prepped and ready to go. I picked a relatively easy one for my first one because the one that I did before that was like a little kitty one. Let me see. I'll see if I can show you guys real fast. It's a little kitty one that I swear to you, that was the bane of my existence. And the thing was, for me, it was fun because here we go. Okay. All right, guys, I found that for you. I had to just snip out my previous scene just because it had my full name in there, and I don't feel comfortable having that out there. But you see how small he is, this precious little turtle, and all of the back stitching I did. And this was a counted cross stitch, so it took me forever to do that one. So when I decided for my YouTube channel, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have like a counted cross stitch day, where that's where I just do counted cross stitch. I was looking for pieces that I was like, okay, I need something that's full coverage. I need something that isn't going to be like a lot of back stitching. So I found several of them. I'm going to be reviewing them for you guys over the next couple weeks and stuff like that as I go through my orders and stuff like that. So I'm excited to start that, but the pattern doesn't look like there's a lot of confetti. It looks like a lot of block stitching, so I'm thankful for that. But if you're going to do confetti, I say do a stamped confetti. Okay. Now you see why I did those half stitches. Just so I can finish out this little section over here. And see, that one is a fat one. Those two are, so I know in this area, anything that's left is going to be those other stitches. That one's regular, regular, regular. Okay. Now that I'm putting all these colors in, they're coming together very nicely, as you can see, like in this section here. Once I'm done with this piece of thread, I'll probably call this stitch with me for this week done. I just like trying to get through one full thread, one full thing with you guys. That way it gives you guys a little bit of time to stitch, because there are some shorter stitch with me's out there, which, you know, I guess for video purposes works. But if I'm going to watch a stitch with me, I don't want to have to keep stopping and looking for a new video every 15 minutes. So I personally try to look for longer stitch with me's, just so that way I can stay stitching for a little bit. I personally like watching the longer ones, and I think the majority of viewers do too. So, I mean, according to my analytics, that's what you guys like. I know there's some people that will leave the video halfway through, and that's okay. I don't mind. So there's that piece. Okay. Let's see. Let's do these little ones here. And this is what I mean by like mastering that pin stitch. I would say if you're going to do a higher count, Ada, like 14 or higher, definitely master that pin stitch. So when you do have confetti, I was going to say popcorn, geez Louise. When you have that confetti in here like this, you can just bounce around if you need to. As you can see, I was in a little rush right there. And clearly I'm gifted today. Whee! Okay, here we go. Let's try this again. Third time's a charm, they say, right? Right there. The key is to get it right in the middle of all of that. So right in the middle of the thread, in the middle of both. And as you can see, it's okay to have to do it 2 or 3 times, but as long as, see how taut that is? That's how you want your pin stitch to be. That means it's nice and secure in there. So when you do a couple of stitches, it's not going to go anywhere. And I do have several colors, honestly, still left over here. Probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 6, 7. I still have like 7 more colors before I can even say that I'm finished with this area. So again, once we get down into like her dress, as you can see, there's more like color blocking. So that's going to be easy. I just started with the more difficult piece because I just wanted to see her face come to life. I know there's a lot of people that do things differently. Some people like starting with the color blocking. Some people like starting with the details. I just wanted to see her face this time. I'm just like, oh, let's start smack dab in the middle and see what she looks like. Sounds like a plan. Why not? Okay. I'm going to start here and then go down. I feel like, because I talk to myself a lot, at first I thought talking to a camera was going to be hard. Nah, it's pretty much not. Oh, it looks like one of my 3 came out. So if you see here, so that tells me that one of my threads was smaller. So if you look here, there's only 2 here and then 1 here. All right, I'm going to take that as my cue to finish up, guys. So I think I'm going to conclude that as this week's Stitch With Me. So bear with me while I wrap this up. Well, friends, that is the conclusion of our Korean Dancer Week 2. I took it as a sign of our thread kind of splitting up for me to end this stitch with me. If you're one of my subscribers and you hung out all the way till the end, thank you so very much. I appreciate your support. If you're not a subscriber and you enjoyed the content, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Go ahead and hit that notification bell so you can get an update of when I load new content. I do post several times throughout the week. Leave a comment or questions below and I'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to follow me on other social media platforms, I do have an Instagram as well as a TikTok. They're both the same user handler, stitching_with_Steph. At the end of my closing credits, I do have a QR code as well for you guys. Again, thank you for staying with me for this week 2 Korean folklore dancer stitch with me. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good week. Bye.